right, I sure 10 o'clock. You guys good to go?
Let's go.
All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thanks everybody for being here. I know Paul couldn't make it today, so we want to go ahead and do the roll call.
Mark Panuti.
Present.
Paul Wilson. Scott Stillman. Present. Pete Weaver. Here. Jesse Cooper.
Present.
You have a quorum, sir.
All right, thank you. Next item is the approval of the meeting minutes from August 14th. They're in the packet. I was on the phone for that meeting, so it looked good to me that I would entertain a motion for approval.
Okay, I'll confirm court.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You need a minute to review them to see if we need any changes. No? Okay. Hearing no discussion then. All in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes pass as submitted. Item 3, Air Improvement Sustainability Plan. Karen Allen, and this is an action. You're in
control. Last meeting we went over a new plan, so it's the Air Improvement and Sustainability Plan. And what it is, that local agencies want to increase the footprint of the air system. We wanted to set something up so that they'd be able to have guidelines on how to do that. So the procedure, man, my mouth and my brain aren't attached yet. Sorry. Anyway, this provides the guidance that those agencies will need. It'll take them step by step through each procedure that they need to do initially, how they interact with DPS, and then how they interact with this board once they get to that point. So we brought the initial draft to you. We got feedback from you. We sent it out to the technical and operational workers. We received feedback from them also, and then sent it out for public comment. We received feedback there as well. I outlined some of the feedback we received from you and then where we placed that feedback with the update. So you asked Mark actually to have us put the MOU language in there, and we added that in the IGA section. There was also some requests to add additional documentation when the information was provided, and we added that into the documentation that comes to the SIEC. So showing that they've got approved site access, showing that they've complied with state and federal guidelines, such as what we learned about in the Pima County program, and then also a sustainability plan. So how are they going to keep this going? And are they just going to put it up and then try to walk away from it? We want to make sure that they've thought this through, and they make sure that they're actually going to keep this up and recognize that they're responsible for it. Then we also added a section in there knowing that there may be a time that somebody isn't going to be able to maintain it. Now, what do we do with that? So we put information in there about discontinuation of maintenance. Do you have any questions about any of that? I'm not sure if you've gotten a review all of it. Okay, and then when we sent it out to technical and operational review, we received some good feedback there as well. As far as the maintenance, we wanted to make sure, we had identified that we wanted people to let DPS know if they were having an issue or if they were going to be doing maintenance on their site. But something else that was brought up that was a good idea was if there's going to be any change to the capacity of the site or the operational coverage of the site. We want to make sure that that's obviously going to impact the users, so they let DPS know that so that they can notify users if there is an issue. Also, if they need maintenance to disable a piece of equipment on the site. So if there's an issue with a piece of equipment and DPS identifies that it needs to be disabled because it's impacting the site overall, we need to make sure that that agency recognizes they have to have 24/7 contact people for that. Also, we talked about a little more about the IGA and MOU in section 4.3, and then there was a request to change the definition as far as SIEC and the glossary in terms of their interaction with this plan. As far as public review, we got public review as well, and there was a request to update and identify a little bit more about the FCC licensing. So that section was also added in 3.4 as a separate section, just talking about the FCC licensing and the fact that DPS is going to maintain and take care of everything that has to do with licenses on the air system. So with those changes, I'm coming to you asking for approval. And once this is approved, we'll go ahead and put it on the website as guidelines for agencies that would like to increase the footprint and add equipment to the air system.
I should should note we've already posted the site application form to our website as well. And that's the last form in the procedure there.
Comments from the committee?
Scott.
Scott would be well.
I'm fine.
You're good with it? Scott's good with it? That's a good sign.
That's actually prepared.
We do our last public call.
Yeah, anybody from the public? Any comments, concerns?
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Anybody on the phone that would like to comment on this? All righty. Hearing no comments, if this is an action item, I would entertain a motion to approve the standard operating procedure for the Arizona Interagency Radio System Improvement Sustainability Plan.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve it as written, incorporating the comment. I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the work. All right. Next item on the agenda, item 4, implementation of the Arizona Interoperable Channels Plan. This is information and discussion. Michael.
Emphasis on discussion. Where are we? Oh, there we go. All right. To review real quick, last time we updated the Arizona Interoperable Channels Plan was in January of this year, 2012. And basically, the plan was to incorporate Arizona Interoperable Channels, or the AIRS channels, along with certain select NIFOG channels, national channels, and introduce standard naming conventions for Arizona. And it was it took a considerable amount of time to get all the feedback incorporated, external changes as the NIFOG was changing, and also to correct inaccuracies in the document. But currently the plan seems to have stabilized with priority programming guides for VHF, UHF, and 7/800 megahertz bands. And so we thought we'd take a look and see how we were doing. The drivers behind the Interoperable Channels Plan, the key part of the National Emergency Communications Plan, various initiatives and milestones in that plan. Talk about the NIFOG channels and the use of them. Also in the Arizona SCIP, initiatives 3, 4, and 6 speak directly or indirectly to the Interoperable Channels Plan. Also incorporated into the procurement process in the state of Arizona, we've incorporated recommendations or directives, let's say, to assure that people are aware when they do purchase radios that it's good to put in the Interoperable Channels Plan. Pitch process and the procurement process has that pretty well incorporated into it. So, how are we doing statewide on the adoption of the Interoperable Channels Plan? The outreach plan has the recommendations for use of it incorporated into it. Over the past year or so, we've had 2 major influences. The narrowbanding effort has caused people to reprogram their radios, and as while they're in the middle of reprogramming, many had planned to incorporate the interoperable channels. And then also during the NACP Goal 2 events last year, we reviewed the after-action reports, and the recommendation to include and use the Interoperable Channels Plan was in 10 of the county's AARs. And 5, the recommendation was to continue to use the interoperable channels because they had already had them programmed. Also, as part of the TICP program, we're asking and encouraging people to use the interoperable channels. So if we review where we're at with the TICP process, 5 CICPs already have the interoperable channels plan incorporated into them and recommend the use of those channels. Two of them are not approved yet, but they're in draft form and they're in there, as I checked. Okay, so. And then as we progress to hit the remaining CICPs that are scheduled for 2013, we'll be encouraging use of the channels plan there. As a result of this review, we did notice that a couple of CICPs were done prior to our recommendation, so we'll probably go back and encourage an update to those. Okay, so currently, we were wondering about how best to promote the use of the plan. Some thoughts were on surveys, determine the status, their intentions, what's in the way of using them. Encourage the use of the interoperable channels plan during exercises and COMLS trainings. Continue with supporting the development of TICPs, and then possibly using the Arizona associations to promote and encourage the use of the channels plan. So we kind of threw these up there and then like to open it up for discussion. If anybody has any pros, cons, or discussion about these ideas and how to best promote the use of the channels plan.
Are all the Aries channels now?
Yeah.
Included in the channel.
They're in the channel.
Right. That helps.
Yeah.
Michael, I think one of the challenges that at least I've experienced from my counterparts is that channel plan was kind of in a state of change for quite a long time, and really through no fault of anybody. It was constantly being updated, so there was always this moving target that everybody was trying to hit. So I think, I don't want to say lack of participation, but I think some people were, I'm going to wait till the dust settles before I decide to pull the trigger, or, you know, they have different iterations of it and they're not actually where they should be. So I think you're going to
where they want to be.
Yeah,
because I found some that were kind of split. Let's load the stuff that we know, and let's wait until the other stuff settles down almost. So
I think from the way I see, I know you guys have some control over the pitch process with your state agencies, but I would implement that level of control in the IWG process for any grant applications that go through. I think, you know, I know Lisa's been pretty, you know, Lisa Hansen's been very adamant about that, including that as a condition of your grant funding, but the IWG should really request that be included in the actual IJ process, that you see that they're specifying they're going to use these channels with any grant-funded equipment. Just make it a condition of the award that they have to do that, and that'll gain some additional compliance on that, I think. But I think the IWG is probably the best resource, because either RAC, UASI, you know, any of those funding sources have to go through the IWG process. So that's really our level of control of kind of steering people in the right direction with their grant funding.
A great suggestion, Justine. In fact, we had sent a letter to Director Angia last spring, just after last year's grant cycle contracts had gone out, and so we may see that as part of the sub-grantee agreements for this cycle. Those have not, or I have not seen any of those yet this year, so I'm not sure if that made it into this cycle sub-grantee agreement. But we will continue to work with Homeland Security to see if we can have that added in, and of course have it part of the IWG review process as well.
Another suggestion would be to maybe include some language, I know maybe in the sub-grantee or somewhere, but that if you buy a multi-band radio, the expectation is you're going to put the various versions in there. So if you have a tri-band radio, you should have the VU 7, 8 all capable in that piece of equipment, and if you buy the single band, you're going to put whatever appropriate band you have. If you're buying a multi-band radio, you have plenty of room to put all of those in there. You're not going to run out of things.
that's a good point.
Maybe just another condition of that, if you are going to buy a dual band or tri-band radio, the expectation is you're going to put all those in there.
Right. That's a good point. And again, to go back, I mean, I hadn't realized that it actually has been 9 months since there was a change to that document, which is a record for the last 2 years.
I think since things have stabilized, it's going to be a lot easier to convince people on the education outreach to go ahead and because it's expensive to keep reprogramming radio, and especially for statewide agencies, really, really expensive.
So what do you think about using the associations and trying to promote it through that? Because that's something we have not done in the past.
I personally think it will help because there's a lot of the private services that get the Homeland Security grants and they'll get some of the other exposure. So that's just good education. But really what it comes down to is the more you use it, the more they'll want to play. Okay. If they're the only ones that aren't able to communicate, they want to do it. So yeah, but you can, I think, using associations anyway to get it out.
It might be of interest to figure out why people haven't done it too. I don't know what kind of response you would get, but is it subscriber equipment that's not capable, or do they have too many channels they have to put in a 48-channel radio, or what are they carrying that they can't do that? Some of that's going to go away because we're going to have to buy some new equipment here soon, very soon. But I think that that might be interesting to figure out where to target your efforts. If it's a equipment-based problem, there's only so much you can do about that. You can educate them all day, but until they're able to do it, they're not going to be in compliance with you.
I still think it's knowledge. There's been a lot of training that's gone on, a lot that's available, but I still run into all kinds of folks that are like, what? What is that? Or agencies that are resistant to use it because they say it doesn't work. What we talk about here specifically. Yeah.
You might want to consider getting on the agenda for MAG, League of Cities type meetings, just a short to the point. There are operational tools out there that can reduce your risk.
Right.
And since those folks control the budgets for those operational entities, it may behoove them to, entice them to go back and ask the questions, are we doing this or not, and how come? Because it costs programming and some education training, but most of the time doesn't require going out and buying any more equipment.
Right.
Another thing, Michael, that's probably a good suggestion to consider is your private parties, like Mark had mentioned, that are out doing the work. Durham Communications, Creative Communications, they do work for jurisdictions that don't have interoperability experts on staff that can guide them. So if I'm a small agency and I drop my radios off at Joe's radio shop, they're not going to know what to tell him or her to put in there.
Right.
So
that is a good avenue.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. Did you get everything you needed from me?
Yeah. More than I expected, which is good.
All right. We're usually full of it. Item 5, Communications Unit Training and Recognition Program Update. Susan.
All right, hello committee. I'm actually very excited about this presentation. Last time I was up here, the last SIEC meeting, we were very heavily focused on the program documents. Today I get to talk a little bit more about the achievements, where we've been, where we're going. First things first, of course, we no longer reference it as the COMLS Recognition and Training Program. It's the Communications Unit, so we are expanding. For this presentation, I'm going to speak a little bit to the trainings that we've done and that we're getting ready to do, and then also discuss the status of our recognition program and what we've updated on our website. So first off, in the beginning, back when the COMLS training was rolled out in 2009, there were 6 courses that were offered statewide. I've listed them up here, so if anybody wants a good snapshot, they have a place to go to. They can look at this presentation. 5 of the 6 courses that were offered in 2009 were offered because of the Phoenix Fire Department federal grant. There was one other class, the very last one that was offered in 2009, was part of the OEC federal rollout program. And you can see that during the course of 4 months, there was a fair amount of training, 2 in Maricopa County, but the rest were outside of Maricopa. More recently, as you guys are aware from the presentation I mentioned from last time, the PSIC office has become more involved in the COML trainings. We did work with ADEM and with our NIMCU work group to create the Arizona All Hazards Communications Unit Training Coordination Procedure. So following that procedure, we've collaborated with ADEM, and these are the 6 courses that are listed that we've had during the past year. So back almost a little over a year ago, October 17th through the 20th, here in Maricopa County, that was utilizing ADEM training funds with Maricopa County. So Pete, thank you very much for supporting us in that effort. You can also see that there were 4 classes that are listed. The funding source is 2010 IECGP. Those took place in Mojave County, Pima County, Cochise, and Coconino County. And then kind of smack almost in the middle in February of this year, there was a course in Glendale. That was an EMI-sponsored course, which luckily, because of the bridges that we've been building with ADEM, our office was made aware of that course. FEMA EMI saw fit to bring a course to us. Unfortunately, they forgot to loop in the SWIC. So luckily, ADEM picked up that piece of the puzzle and contacted us immediately so that we could still be involved. In fact, I went out to that training to offer up materials to the students. Once we schedule a course, we do so with ADEM, and then we send out an announcement. We send it out to our interested parties list. We also have a list that's available on our website that people who are interested in COML training courses can be notified. And then we post the announcement on our website. One thing that's important that I think we've pretty much ingrained in everyone during these last 6 courses is that students do have to register through IRMA. And then once they've registered, they're not officially enrolled until they provide our office 2 required forms. There's a prerequisite certification form. The prereqs for the COML class are ICS 100, 200, 700, 800. Those can be taken online. And ICS 300, which does have to be taken in a classroom setting. So if anybody has questions about the prerequisites, my information is at the end of this presentation. You can always contact me. You can also send an email to our general inbox, psic@azpsic.gov. Once our office has received the completed forms, then we change the student status in IRMA to enroll. So we've added that process prior to students showing up for the class if they aren't actually ready for it. All right. With the classes in 2009 and the classes that we've offered over the last year, we've kind of put together a breakdown of where our trained COMLs are. It's broken out by county. Now, there are 181 Arizona students, so we've taken out the 5 people that were from out of state, and we've also taken into account that we have some students that repeated the course. So the repetition is not included in here, and out of state is not included. On the left-hand side, you can see down at the bottom, Maricopa County is leading the pack with 76 trained individuals. I do have to say, though, that there have been 4 COML classes in Maricopa County. So I think that helps to explain why there is such a large number. Not to mention the fact that there are, I believe, a higher percentage of people in this county that need the training and are ready for it. Right after that...
Take a note on that, too. We've had a lot of, like the National Guard and some of our, some of the state participants jumped in on the Maricopa County. So that helped our numbers a little bit, but they actually have wider responsibility than just our county.
That's true. Thank you. And that is something, too, that just because a student from a county is trained doesn't necessarily mean that they took that training in their county. Second to Maricopa County is Cochise County with 26. We have a tie for third for Pima County and Yuma County. Both have 20 individuals trained. And then Mojave County is behind that. You can see some of the areas, Gila County, Graham, Greenlee, La Paz, that need a little extra. In this case right now, what we can offer is assistance, letting them know where the courses are, especially when they're being offered in their areas. One of the challenges that we have is a county that doesn't have anyone trained does not necessarily have the numbers to warrant holding a class in that county. So we're doing our best to work with the emergency managers and at least provide the information to get those students who are ready to a class that's close to them. Okay, so that was training in the past. Coming up, we do have, because we've been able to spend funds so economically, I think that's a good word to use, we have remaining SCIP training funds that we used to put on 4 of the 6 courses that were listed. So the next training course has been scheduled. It is going to be in Yuma later on this month, October 22nd through the 25th. The announcement for this course is posted on our website. The IRMA number is included here, number 100-2202. And I have also left flyers for those of you in the audience. If you know anyone who needs this training, please send them to our website where I have training announcements that are also available on the table so you can take them with you. At this point, because we do have additional funds and we know that there is a need, we are welcoming feedback from any stakeholders and counties who have suggestions for where we should offer these future courses. I have listed some information that we want people to consider when it comes to scheduling and logistics. Currently, the course is still 4 days in length. At the federal level, they are moving to reduce it back to 3 days. We know that that is coming. We just do not know when. So for the time being, the course lasts 4 days. We do try to stay away from holiday weeks, and we found that Monday through Thursday seems to work the best because some people do take Fridays off. As far as location, we do require a training facility in order to facilitate the breakout sessions of the groups. It should accommodate 30 to 50 people. If possible, it should have a projector and computer access. We do have ways around that. We've actually had courses in some areas that didn't have the technology. I'm happy to bring that to any course that we offer. Reminder for attendance, the course generally requires a minimum of 15 students. That's an ADEM requirement. I can tell you I haven't met that requirement every single time. It shames me a little bit. I don't want to see that continue in the future. So when anyone is offering that feedback, please keep in mind that we do need enough interest to hit that minimum of 15 students. The cap is 30 students. I have yet to hit that cap. And last but not least, enrollment. If I get feedback that a county is ready, they have 15 individuals, they want to take the class, and the PSIC office reviews it, we decide to move forward, that's great. People need to remember, however, that these courses are open to qualified students across the state. So we will be putting out information to everyone and welcoming qualified participants. Okay, moving on from COML to COMT. Are there any questions regarding the COML training?
I'm just really impressed with the progress this has made. You built the relationships with the various state departments, and I have full confidence in the program. I mean, it's really stable, it's consistent, and it's come a long way. And I think the COMLs are pretty in line with the population percentages around the state. And it's just really good to see this coming to fruition, so thank you very much. I know it's hard work, it wasn't easy, and you put up with us hammering at you.
We're all getting there together.
Thank you.
And good job on the judiciously spending the funds, because you've made that go farther, and that's quite a testament, because normally things come over budget and you don't end up with what you thought you were going to get, so we're getting more out of it, so that's a good job on that one too.
Glad to hear that. We're actually sharing with other states that have been looking at our program as a model, and we've been working with them to explain how we do the process, why we do the process the way we do it, and part of that, as far as for keeping costs low, has to do with the per diem rates, the state per diem rates, that any courses that are FEMA approved that go through ADEM, we have to follow those state procedures. So we're letting other states know, hey, if this is what you have in effect, this is how we've moved forward, and I know some other states are considering that as well.
So it actually helps those people anyway if they're using grant funds. When they get audited, they're in the clean and green and not... Correct.
Especially lately.
Okay, continuing on that note, the COMT training, this is for the Communications Unit Technician. It is a longer course. It's a 5-day course, which is led by 2 instructors. This course, I believe you are already familiar with this, but I will state it again, it's highly technical in nature. And for that reason, the enrollment is limited to 15 students. This is not yet a FEMA-approved course. This is still under Office of Emergency Communications. Because of the limited availability, these courses are offered by invitation only. It is not put out on IRMA like the COML course. I can tell you that the course that we held in April in Maricopa County, working with the instructors, we were able to invite 3 additional participants. So we did have 18 for that course. But in general, it's limited to 15. To date, I mentioned one of the courses that we have, which was Maricopa County, April of this year. Prior to that, in October of 2011, we did offer the COMT course in Tucson. That was offered through a technical assistance award that our office requested. Right now, again, because of judicious use of grant funds, we do have additional funding for the Maricopa County, the Central RAC grant, the SCIP 2011 funds. So we are currently working to prepare for that course. We do have a request for quote that is out on the street. It's been put out through Procure AZ, the website, and the responses are due on the 15th. If anyone has any questions about that RFQ, they can come and ask me after this meeting is over. Additionally, there were some...
They can go to Procure AZ and ask it through the system. We're not allowed to talk
Sorry,
about
questions that are posted in the solicitation. I will only answer questions that are posted in the solicitation and tell you where to go. Thank you, Justin. I'm like this meeting. Additionally, there were some fallout funds, some other IECGP fallout funds that we will be using to offer the COMT course in Yuma. That will be sometime next year. So, are there any questions about the COMT training? Okay, COMLS Field Day. I could almost call this a Communications Unit Field Day, but it was actually listed on the grant as COMLS, so I'll continue to call it that. We have made some progress. I know in past meetings I haven't been able to say that, so woohoo! We've made progress for the COMLS Field Day. We actually did put out a request for proposal. I do not believe that that has been awarded yet, so if you have any questions, you'll have to come ask Justin. I'm just going to point to you on that. The goal, what we're trying to do is develop a schedule and a curriculum that offers hands-on training to both COMLS and COMTs, the individuals who have completed those courses here in Arizona, in order to develop their skills. So I know some people have heard of something called a COMLEX, a Communications Unit Leader exercise. This concept is similar to that, but it is not the same. It is a hands-on training field day. It is not an HCEP compliant, full-day, master scenario events list included exercise. It is slightly different. As you guys are aware, we originally targeted spring of 2012. In fact, I think winter of last year was also targeted for delivery, but because of the issues, or excuse me, because of the challenges that we've worked through with the State Procurement Office, and also in reference to wildfire season, can't really send people to training day if they're not available because they're working, it has been postponed. I'm happy to announce that we are actually looking on the horizon. There may be a date, and hopefully at the next PSCC meeting, we may be able to announce when that is, but it has not been determined yet. One last note regarding the field day. I mentioned earlier the COMLEX. The California SWIC has actually invited our office to come over to their COML exercise, which is next week. Michael Cruz wanted us to learn a little bit more about how COMLs work and train. And in my opinion, I think they also want to pick our brain a little bit about our recognition and training program. So I will be headed over next week to get an idea of what they're doing. And also hopefully bring back some information that will help our office in preparing for the COML Field Day. So are there any questions about Field Day? Then I will move on to one of my favorite parts, more numbers. Kind of bridging the gap from training to recognition. This is a number snapshot. As of this month, your NCU work group has recognized 18 Arizona Regional All Hazards COMLs, and they did have a meeting last month. We had our first submission of materials for consideration of the Arizona Regional All Hazards COMT. There's more information about that a little bit later on in your multiple project updates document, but that individual was recognized. So we now have one COMT on our list. This gives you a little bit of an idea broken down by discipline of individuals that have been trained and recognized. I'll give you a moment to take a look at that. Again, individuals that are from Arizona, not taking into account the repetition, or excuse me, taking into account repetition. We had 181 individuals who have been trained. We've recognized 18. I believe that's almost 9%. That, compared to information that we've received from other states, is actually a pretty high number. In some circles, they will tell you, even at the federal level, that if you get 3 to 5% of the people that take the course to complete their task book, you're doing well. So we're above that level. And then for COMT, this is actually pretty good considering that we've only had 2 classes so far. We've trained 32 Arizona individuals, and we have 1 person who's recognized. Now, the individuals who are recognized represent agencies from 5 counties. So 5 of the 15, that's not too bad. and they are listed on our website. We have our All Hazards Communications Unit resource list, and I have yet to do this, so this is the first time. This is what our resource list looks like. I think in meetings past, I've just put a piece of paper in front of the committee. But again, this is what we have that's posted online. I do apologize for the small text. It's broken down by county. The 5 counties that are currently represented are Cochise, Coconino, La Paz, Maricopa, and Yavapai. And of course, as evident by the numbers in the population, Maricopa County is leading the pack. One more thing to note before I move to the next slide. The individual is listed by name and in their corresponding position. There is room if there are individuals who wish to be recognized in both positions, COMLS and COMT. And the contact information that is listed is specific to their agency, their certifying agency. Any questions about the resource list? All right. As I mentioned earlier, our office, we've been working with people from other states, New York, Hawaii, Connecticut, Tennessee, there's all sorts of them, answering any questions that they have about our program. And one thing that we've shared with you during past meetings, this is part of the multiple project updates, is that OEC was working with NTIA, the National Council of Statewide Interoperability Coordinators, to gather up information for COMLS recognition programs and disseminate that information in the form of webinars. They use the webinars to share program details with other SWICs and other communications unit subject matter experts so that other states can work to either develop programs if they don't have them or give them information to consider for how they may want to improve their programs. Arizona, we're one of the 3 that have been presented so far. Tennessee was the first back in June. Ours was the second on July 31st. And then Connecticut was the most recent. Last week they had their webinar. In each of the cases, the SWIC would talk to challenges that they addressed with their recognition programs, as well as some best practices that they felt other states could consider for creating their programs or improving their programs. We have participated in all 3, and we do hear that, I believe they'll be coming out with some more, I just don't know when yet. We will continue to participate in those. What I want to note here, though, is that the work of this committee and also the work of the NIMCU work group is being recognized at the national level. So that is a huge feather in our caps, that for all of the time that is being spent, and it's volunteer, I try to tell people from out of state, these are individuals who have committed their time. They're not getting paid to help the PSIC office to help me do this, and this is how far we've moved forward. I think that is huge.
Those webinars, how similar or different? What are the key differences between Tennessee and Connecticut?
You know what, I'll move to the next slide. That is a good question. Perfect segue. They were fairly similar. I'm just going to kind of work down through some of these program features, starting with the certification level. Right now, we're at the level of having a regional recognition. It's not a state level. I think you guys were inundated with those presentations about a year ago. The difference is that Connecticut, they do have theirs at a state level. They have actually worked with the typing. They consider theirs a type 3 recognition, and anything that's at smaller incidents, type 4, type 5, that would be done at the regional or local level. So they've kind of taken it to the next step. Tennessee has what they call a local level and a state level. Their local level is akin to what we have for our regional level. So part of that is kind of a naming convention. The certification term in Arizona is 3 years. It is the same in Connecticut. Tennessee has not specified theirs yet, but it looks like they're moving toward 3 years. That was pretty much a national level, something that OEC put out as being worthy of consideration, that 3 years was a good number. So hopefully when Tennessee puts it in writing, we will find out what their certification term is. The next 3 areas, the program features, are consistent across the board. There is substantial involvement from the SWIC or the SWIC's office. The certification process itself is consistent with the national process, which is put out in the COMLS course. There are 3 things that have to be satisfied. 1, a student has to complete the prerequisites for the COMLS course. 2, they have to complete the All Hazards COMLS course. It cannot be an NWCG COMLS. It does have to be the FEMA L969 All Hazards COMLS course. And then the 3rd item is that they have to have their task book, they have to complete it and have it signed off by an agency certifying official. The next three I found were kind of interesting with Connecticut. They do have COML exercises. In the presentation that they did, they have them quarterly. That's what they were informing the other states. They require candidates to participate in one of those exercises, before they can be recognized at that state level. So that's kind of a next step where I personally see our program going. When we have the resources that we can commit to having, for example, an MCU work group, be involved with trainees and be able to vet every step of the process, then we will probably be at that state level. Additionally, Connecticut does have an interview. Their SWIC is one of the members on that panel for the interview. And their recertifications, they require a new task book to be completed. Here in Arizona, we allow documentation. If someone wants to submit their IAP, their Incident Action Plan, or other information, they can do that, but we do not require a completely new task book to be signed off on. Okay, let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Next, the COML training program. Again, this is consistent among all three. It's managed at the state level. There is cooperation between the state training officer, the STO, and the SWIC. In our case, the STO is over at ADEM, and clearly we've been coordinating with them. Additionally, the OEC Technical Assistance Awards have been leveraged for training. So a lot of the COML courses, I believe in Tennessee they were saying, were offered through technical assistance. Now because of dwindling budgets, they are looking at slowing the number of offerings that they put out. According to their webinar, Tennessee was putting out one class every 4 to 6 weeks. And they've said that in the future that will slow down dramatically. And then last, but certainly in my mind not least, our state of the three is the only one that has documented the certification process in a format that is available to others. Connecticut is in the process of doing that. They did mention, their SWIC mentioned that by the end of the month, hopefully they will have that document complete, and then it will be shared out through the NIC SWIC to the state SWICs. Tennessee said that they were working on it, but they did not give a deadline for when they would be finished. So does that help a little bit with the comparison? All right. Are there any questions about the information? On to my favorite, and I have to thank Justin for this because he is our website guru. And whenever I need something posted or updated, I can go straight to him and it's done, I kid you not, within 5 minutes. I don't know if you could find that level anywhere else. So after the PSCC approved the recommended revisions to the recognition procedure last month, we did update our website. I did put out a list so that we can kind of focus on a few of these. Up at the top, new. We did post the instructional video. This is OEC put out this video. The introduction to the communications unit, one of our very own, who happens to be here in this room, Dan Wills, superstar, yes, did this presentation. He did this presentation, and we felt that it did have a home on our website. Instead of us just pointing to OEC's tools website, that it did belong on ours. In addition, of course, we updated our policies and procedures and the associated forms, everything that we discussed at the last SIEC meeting. We have updated our resource list, which I showed you a few moments ago. And we also updated our FAQs that are related to the task books because, drum roll, the last item, we have our very own Arizona-specific COMT task book. It is no different, in essence, from the federal version. The reason why we have created an Arizona-specific one is because it is fillable, does have fillable forms for all those wonderful people whose handwriting may not be so legible. So we put it out. Anyone has access to it. Someday, talk to me after a meeting. I'll tell you about the cases I've run across. That's why we're so adamant to put out tools that help people. Of course, after we did this, after we updated the website, we sent out an email to our COML and COMT candidates who completed the training, inviting them to explore the website, and I forwarded that email to the committee shortly after we sent it. So, without further ado, are there any other questions that you would like to ask or any additional discussion?
Looks good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item 6. Keeps us on the edge of our seats. National Public Safety Broadband.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, after that resounding introduction. All right, and we'll go through the outline. Since we last met, the FirstNet board was appointed. They appointed 4 public safety representatives. Legislation only required 3, so that was a healthy sign, because they might actually pay attention to public safety needs. Also, a couple of days later, the NTIA posted their preliminary grant guidance for the SLIGP grant process. That's the State and Local Implementation Planning Grant. Their recommendations were to show that you've established or adjusted your governance structure to incorporate and plan for the National Public Safety Broadband Network in your state. Develop procedures to assure representation from local and tribal entities. Create your education and outreach process and show that you know what you're doing. They hope to get some idea of the public safety users that might adopt the system. So it's kind of like a cry for please, please, please jump on board kind of thing. And then recommended developing standardized MOUs and IGAs to simplify and streamline the process for permits, rights of way, and other legal issues within the state. And then develop your staffing plan for the outreach and data collection. What they preliminary notion is they want to do it in 2 phases, one for education and outreach, probably a little survey, gathering data points. And then for the real data collection on infrastructure sharing and so on and so forth, they wanted to go to a phase 2 to give FirstNet some time to develop their standards, because getting information from 50 states, you kind of want a standard format and standards so that you can actually look at it as a nationwide level and get a sense of what's going on. Because if everybody started collecting data in their own way and figured out what was important to them, it might not be as helpful. So from an Arizona perspective, we run through here real quick. The establishment of governance structure, we have already gone through that process. In other words, we're using what we have in place with PSCC, the SIEC, and the AZPSIC office as the responsible parties in getting this done. And then we're working on a plan to cover the middle 3 bullet points there in terms of the procedures and education outreach. So want to run through that. If we take a look at the overall picture from the National Public Safety Broadband Network perspective, neither the $134 million that's part of the SLIGP grant process nor the $7 million appear to be enough to cover what we need in terms of analysis or build out. So the key word is figure out how you're going to be conscientious and creative in your financing and sharing of resources. Arizona has multiple initiatives in the hopper that are being managed at the state level through the CIO's office and through ASSET. There are initiatives on health, education, government, and public safety. All will be requiring fiber backhaul. The public safety broadband network, one of the key elements of that will be some, pervasive backhaul capability. So they'll all require education and outreach programs, and each discipline has its own message to get across, but common to all of them is how are we going to build the infrastructure and how the infrastructure is going to be developed. So the Digital Arizona program, which is the state's SBI State Broadband Initiative program that was part of the incentive programs put forth nationally, federally. They have developed a plan to build out conduit throughout the state, and in so doing, reduce the cost for private entities to pull fiber through that conduit. In other words, it's too, relatively, there's not a return on investment for them to do it themselves, but if they don't have to go through the EPA and the right-of-way and all that stuff, if the conduit's available, then more likely would they build out in more rural areas than they have now. So they were able to get a piece of legislation passed, State Bill 1402, which allows the Department of Transportation to treat information just like it does cars and trucks. In other words, it can facilitate the movement of information on state and county roads. And by doing that, they would build out or allow conduit to be built out on their rights-of-way, and then therefore making it cheaper for private enterprise to actually get broadband out in the more rural areas. All right, so they've identified approximately 3,000 miles of state and county roads with a 40-mile swath on either side, because that's where they figure they can get broadband coverage. And in so doing, they'll cover 98% of the population. And in my mind, thinking about public safety, that's about where we would like to be for public safety as well. So not that you've filled in all the gaps or anything, but at least it's a stake in the sand. Each segment's been identified, and they're currently identifying anchor points, whether they be schools or police departments, fire departments that are associated with those particular segments, and developing an ROI model. What's the population, what kind of critical infrastructure is around there, and what and other metrics in terms of what value it has in terms of getting fiber loops built or backhaul to Tier 1 facilities, which are the national level pipelines for the broadband fiber. So the plan would be to bury and lease the conduit, allowing, again, private providers more viable markets. And actually, FirstNet could become one of those leasing agents eventually. So that's kind of the basis of where Digital Arizona is going. And then our plan would be to kind of, given that framework, hang our outreach and education around that to identify, if we go down to the third bullet point, for example, State Route 260 between 89A and 87, 47 miles. It's got a certain COG, certain regional education center, RAC, Western RAC, EMS agents. So to identify those regional governance structures that are associated with that, make sure we have contact points identified. So as we do our outreach and education, we actually do have people by name, as close as we can get, and document that they've actually heard the message. So that way we can show, from a guidance standpoint, that we've actually covered the grant's intent. All right, so this kind of joint approach will allow for real positive and real definitive tracking of our efforts. All right, so as we go through, the OEC has developed a survey, and we're taking a look there. It's in draft mode, let's say, and they're working it as they piloted it in Oregon, and they're working through it in, I think, another 2 states, and so they're getting it honed down to, what information gathering makes sense. So we're probably going to be leveraging that survey as well. We've got a broadband TA that we'll probably be utilizing to work through this. And then as we go, we'll develop more and more metrics about what information we need in terms of infrastructure sharing and so forth. Okay, good point. Any discussion on the education outreach approach?
Michael, just a quick question.
Sure.
When they say when FirstNet's looking at shared assets, do you know if their expectation is, let's say City of Phoenix decides we're going to share some assets with them, how do they intend to offset that in the overall cost recovery model? Is the expectation you're going to share these assets for the greater good, or is the expectation of there's going to be some
Horse trading.
yeah, are we going to barter on this and switch back and forth?
We haven't heard anything, in writing, okay, but my sense would be that you're going to reduce your monthly fee by sharing assets and, so that, since this is fee-based, and if you say, well, okay, we don't have any assets, go ahead and build it for us, and then we'll pay whatever. And that's going to be kind of like your baseline maximal amount. But if half the assets were provided by the state or local jurisdiction or whatever, then you would expect some kind of in-kind on the fees. But we don't know for sure at all. That's just
I've been thinking through the logistics of that. That's going to be a complete disaster, because if you're sharing with, 90 different jurisdictions within a state, you're going to have to negotiate what cost share or what trading you're going to do. They're going to be wrapped up for decades trying to figure out what a fair trade is on that, and I just didn't know what their intentions were to get over that.
Well, and
we can't even do it among ourselves.
Yeah, we know each other, and we like each other.
We go to lunch together.
Well,
yeah.
And frankly, FirstNet and NTIA may be hoping to leave that up to the state to figure it out.
Good luck.
Not.
I was just curious if they had alluded to that, because I see that just from my prior history and governance discussions.
So that's been an issue?
That's been the biggest problem.
There's been previous initiatives to get fiber out to every community. My previous job in a rural county, that was one of the big projects.
Right.
Are they planning on using the same highway, or they want the new separate highway so that the president can shut off the internet? Where's this going?
I'm just saying what we're trying to do in Arizona. Okay. Now, when the Digital Arizona program put together the map, they did not include federal highways because they didn't know where that was going to go. Since then, the initiatives come down through the administration that, yes, federal highways should play nice and share rights of way and infrastructure. So they haven't worked that back into their plan. Okay. FirstNet did hold its inaugural meeting. I say inaugural because FirstNet's first meeting gets a little tongue-tied. And as a result of that meeting, a couple of things. They established two committees, the Public Safety Advisory Committee, which is made up of SAFECOM members. They haven't identified exactly who, but the majority people will be from SAFECOM. And then the SLIGP committee, and membership on that is TBD. Two of the members of the board introduced conceptual, kind of high-level approaches to the network design and also to how they handle application development. As a result of those presentations, NTIA has issued a notice of inquiry to receive input on those approaches. My initial observation is they're fine at a high level, but they're really not geared towards rural. They're mostly geared towards urban, and then there's issues upon how we're going to consistently utilize the applications and not end up with pockets of the western approach versus the eastern approach versus the different sections of the country, and then have interoperability issues before we know it. So, We are going to respond to the notice of inquiry through the working group, the Arizona Public Safety Broadband Network Working Group, and I encourage anyone who has gone through that and has opinions, please contact us so we can work that into our response. Okay? And I open that up to people in general. All right. Because that gives some idea of what the FirstNet board, the way they're thinking about how this can be built out. All right, and then just a couple of notes. The NTIA is still working on the statement of requirements. They're going into their final round of edits starting October 12th. Should be another month and a half, 2 months before that gets published and put out for general comment. And then the Utilities Telecom Council had a meeting here in Tempe, and we were part of a panel discussion on what options are possible between the Public Safety Broadband Network and the utilities. And basically it's just information gathering and discussion about what's possible now in terms of what infrastructure they have and what their wishes and needs might be in terms of public safety spectrum. Because apparently they're fairly spectrum poor. But again, it's all just discussion right now. All right, and then as part of this presentation, basically put up the project plan. Again, it hasn't really changed. And then on the timeline, we've got 2 check marks on the August 20th and 22nd for the FirstNet board members and the SLIGP grant guidance. So really the next key thing is that SLIGP grant process opening up Q1 2013, and then our submission for that grant.
Michael, I don't know if you know the answer, but when the issuance of the RFP occurs to Arizona from FirstNet, do they intend to have all of the sites identified and agreements in place so a decision can be made on the RFP? Or is it going to say, our anticipation is everybody's going to play ball with us when we do this? Because I think that's an important decision point for the state of Arizona to figure out whether or not this RFP is viable or not.
What, in terms of sites that are, I'm trying to get where you're saying.
They're going to have to have agreements in place with jurisdictions to share sites, most likely, as we talked about a few minutes ago.
Right.
Are they going to negotiate those before issuing us an RFP so we have a solid cost model to know what we're looking at? Or they intend to say, we would like to acquire 150 sites in Arizona, and here's your RFP, and we'll worry about the logistics after you accept it?
I think it's a 2-part thing, in my mind anyway. Identify the sites so that you know what the coverage is going to be, whether they're shared or not. Okay? And then if you do have possible sharing, that's a separate discussion. Okay? Because I think agreeing between the state of Arizona and FirstNet as to the appropriate level of coverage is the first discussion. And then how it's paid for, whether they're brand new sites or whether they're shared sites, is the secondary question. See what I mean?
Yeah, it's just going to be very dangerous to commit to a proposal before you have an agreement in place as to what you're going to get. And that's what I'm afraid we're going to be asked to do as a state, is to commit to vaporware. This is what you might get. You're not guaranteed you're going to get it. We're going to try our best, but we want you to commit to it before you do it.
That is something to watch out for.
And then at what point is it no longer public safety that they're going to sell out to the public to try and get more revenues? And then pretty soon the new internet is on those pipes, so it's going to be.
Okay.
Great.
Possibly. Anything's possible. No, I mean, and those are definitely things to watch out for.
It is, because they've got their own infrastructure and they're offering it up, and then pretty soon the pressure's going to be, you have to offer it to the public now to help offset our other costs.
Right.
I think we're a long ways from seeing the RFP, but I think it's things to keep on the radar screen because we've been burned by that same thing in the past of here's what we can give you, but oh, by the way, here's what's required, and you haven't agreed to that before you commit to the RFP.
Well, and in my mind anyway, the first thing is to, within the state, agree to the appropriate level of coverage. Step one, what we think we need. And then step two is what we think and how negotiations could or should go in terms of sharing or not, and then come to the table with that. I think there are going to be opportunities for discussions prior to the RFP between FirstNet and the states. And so we'll get a sense at that point of how firm the RFP is going to be or how kind of maybe it's going to be, right? And then we'll start worrying.
It's a challenge.
Oh, no, it is. It's definitely going to be a challenge because they're faced with, okay, we got to make it cheap enough so people will adopt, but if we make it cheap enough in terms of compared to commercial, we won't have enough money to operate. So I think we're going to see, I mean, the indications from the preliminary design, high-level conceptual, was to use as much commercial infrastructure as possible, right? And you go, well, okay, there are issues with that in terms of congestion and overload and reliability and so on and so forth. So, but that's why they open it up for comment, so that the FirstNet board can get an education.
Any other comments? Okay. Yeah? Oh. Did I open that door?
Oh, God. Help you out, Dan.
No, but Jesse, I think you're right on the money. It's very difficult when we don't understand the bandwidth requirements within sectors and things like that to know what the architecture is going to look like. What, how these sectors are going to be built when we talk about, migration into critical voice and things like that. There are more questions than, and we don't even know the questions to ask yet. I think is probably the closest thing to that. This is a new jump into a public-private partnership, which I don't think is inherently bad, but I think has some tread cautiously, lessons learned out of this thing. And this whole thing is pointing towards the, 4G LTE evolution. And I think our LTE, or really long-term, what's next? What are the requirements behind that? How dynamic is it? This is a real big paradigm shift for public safety, or for government, essentially, to be operating in these markets, or to be operating in any market, frankly. That's kind of what I'm thinking for. So, it's an auspicious undertaking. In other words, holy moly, but I think, I don't want to say, I think caution is in being very deliberate on this thing, because like I said, we're really looking at a bunch of theories. We're trying to build systems and agreements based on theories.
I think I think that's probably the best point is, I don't know that, at least I don't know about me, but the rest, I don't know that we know the right questions to ask. When you don't ask the right questions, sometimes you get served up something that sounds good, and then you commit to it, and then you realize you kind of got the bad end of the deal later.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, the whole LTE priority and QoS model has not been put in place and validated yet in terms of, okay, can you establish preemptive priority and can everybody work well together? I mean, I go back to the early days of PC multitasking operating systems, and some of them did really a bad job of that. But
we're going to be leapfrogging too. If we're in whatever our modulation at the moment is, 4G, we're going to be leapfrogging as things develop in the line. So if we're 5 years out to develop something that's now 3 years in obsolescence, so it's a real dynamic issue. And I really applaud people like Michael who got suckered. I mean, got the people who got involved in this and are going to be involved in it in one way or another. This is a huge undertaking, but it's got a ton of support from everywhere, a ton of money behind it. So,
on the other hand, my take is I'd rather FirstNet take off on this process and the state try to go by itself.
Absolutely.
I mean, we don't have, I'm sorry, like to say, we don't have the education to do this.
I know.
You can only hope that FirstNet collectively, nationwide.
I don't know, that whole opt-in, opt-out conversation just seemed to be folly. There's no way to opt out of this thing.
Dan, I know you're engaged with the national, are the national organizations, are they grasping this, in your opinion, the IAFF, the IAZP, the, NIPSIC, are these groups really?
I think, you've got Carl McEwen and all these people who are representative of that. Some of them are in FirstNet, or if they're not, they're in the hallway of FirstNet. Right. And so, yeah, the IACP and certainly IAFC, what's the county organization, yeah, they're very much part of this.
And I mean, I've been really involved with NIPSIC, and they come up with the same issues and questions and just unknowns that are out there on this thing. So we're not alone.
All right, thanks, Michael. I can hardly wait for the next update.
Next thought.
And I don't mean to be rude. Thank you very much. That is,
I can take.
I'm glad you're doing it. Okay, so item 7, and I think this has got to be something we haven't made it to in a long time, but you actually have 50 minutes.
Well, and don't get your hopes up too high.
Yep.
Because this is a big topic.
It is, but at least we're not at 5 minutes and you have to try and do it all.
Exactly. Well, there's a few things I wanted to do today. One is to cover a lot of, this is our last meeting of the year, so I wanted to cover all of our accomplishments over the past year. Wanted to talk about our PSIC office plan, which is the plan our office puts together every fiscal year to say these are the projects we're working on, this is how we're going to allocate our resources, and that's kind of all based on the SCIP and the strategic initiatives that the Commission lays out. And then to have a conversation with you after updating you on everything on what you feel our priorities should be for next year, the areas that the SIEC would like to work on. So with that, let me just jump right into it. In the area of governance, and I'm not going to cover everything that our office did, I really wanted to just hit on the elements that the SIEC has worked on over the past year. Obviously, the NEP Goal 2 assessments, reporting gap closure, we started off the year with the closing out of that process, or at least out of the assessment process, and beginning to look at where things stood on a statewide basis, compiling the recommendations. All of that helped to feed into our annual SCIP update, and also to begin the county-by-county kind of closure of various gaps, and we've seen lots of progress in different counties on those. And of course, your input and request on the technical assistance as well. From the policy, standards, procedures, SOPs lane, establishing the PSP framework is one of our key strategic initiatives. And this past year, we have touched on 5 different standards. Some of these were revisions, some of these were wholesale reintroduction. So the past year, the SIEC updated the Arizona minimum equipment standards, included in the 700 and 800, and really put that into a brand new form compared to the 2007 version. At the beginning of the year, this year, we had finalized the Arizona Interop Channels Plan, and then in the, as Susan mentioned earlier, the communications unit, both training and recognition program, all of those procedures, the MCU procedures, the training coordination procedure, all of those went under revisions this year as well. And really, across all 5 of those, we've now matured those to a level where they're very stable now, and we don't expect to have many changes moving forward. In the technology lane, a lot of the technology lane really falls outside of the SIEC purview. For example, or at least we haven't worked on it recently, things like the microwave project and the strategic technology reserve. But there are 2 in particular. Obviously, enhance and promote AIRS, the interoperable communication solution. And then supporting regions to implement, enhance, and promote functional regional voice and data systems in support of interoperable communications. So some of the projects over the past year, at the end of last year, we completed the drive test of errors, and to help kind of establish a baseline of where errors coverage was in Arizona now that the build-out of errors at the state level at least has been complete. The next generation errors plan, if you remember, that's what it has been called for the past several years. It's now, thanks to your actions today, the errors improvement and sustainability plan. This is something that has been an objective in our SCIP since this first came over and the PSIC office was established. So it's great to finally have that checked off and completed and out there now for jurisdictions to take advantage of. We've done a lot of work on strategy and standards development, particularly working with folks on the national level and providing feedback into things like the minimum interoperability requirements, the statement of requirements that NIPSTIC is working on. And then in narrowbanding, a lot of work on narrowbanding outreach. We started off the year with our statewide narrowbanding survey, and I just wanted to update everybody here today kind of on where things stand, the progress that's been made since then. Beginning of the year, about 66% of the state had begun the process of modifying their licenses, either both narrowband and wideband. There are three different classifications that your SEC license can be: wideband only, narrow and wide, or narrowband only. We started off with just 16% of the state at a narrowband only, and 50% of the state was had both narrowband and wideband, and about a third of the state was wideband only. Since then, as of the end of September, we've made a great amount of progress on that. We're up to 88.5% that have updated their license status and are actively moving it through. So far, at the moment, a little over 10% of the state is still wideband only, 854 transmitters out of, I believe it's 7,500, 7,400 transmitters statewide. So that's significant progress, although there is only 3 months left to go. It's rather difficult to know out of those 850 transmitters how many of those are going to be decommissioned at the end of the year, how many of those are planning on converting, and how many of those will be in non-compliance, is the kind of the technical term the FCC has been using recently. From a narrowband only standpoint, we obviously have a lot of work. There are many jurisdictions that may have already gone completely narrowband. They just haven't changed their license from narrow wide to narrow only. The brownish area are counties where between 20 and 40% of the transmitters have been updated to narrowband only. The red counties there are counties that less than 20% are narrowband only. Now, before that gets too concerning, though, this slide is the one that we're really concerned about, and these are the counties that, this is the wideband only standpoint. Maricopa County there, the dark blue one, somewhere between 20 and 40% of transmitters in Maricopa County are wideband only right now. The green counties are counties where less than 20% of the county is wideband only. So we have made a significant amount of progress completely statewide. This is showing that a big chunk of our wideband transmitters, I believe it's 323 there, out of that 800 are right here in Maricopa County. So we know with major systems like RWC and TRWC, these are 700, 800 megahertz systems, and so we're not looking at too huge of an impact. I'm sorry, excuse me, I was a little bit unclear there. With the major systems serving Maricopa County being 700 and 800 and not subject to narrowbanding, this 20% figure here isn't too much of a concern. My guess is that a large chunk of this 323 are transmitters or licenses that are still licensed out there, but really aren't are no longer in use. Or they're smaller agencies, maybe they're in the process of migrating to one of those systems. At the beginning of the year, we had sent out that survey and asked all the SEC license holders to let us know their plans. We're going to be following up this week with those license holders again that are in this 850 wideband only column and saying, hey, we're down to 3 months. Where are you at? Where's the progress made? And hopefully it's a case that a majority of these are just folks that haven't updated the universal licensing system. But if you are in the Maricopa County area in particular, it's something to pay attention to if you're operating in VHF UHF. Any questions on narrowbanding status? Also within the technology realm, as I mentioned, the microwave, state strategic technology reserve, state agency communications, those are 3 of our initiatives that the SIEC at least has not had a lot of emphasis and work on this year, although there has been a lot of work on all 3 of those initiatives. And I should mention that in July at the PSCC meeting in Flagstaff, I did a very similar presentation to the Commission on statewide activities. So if you'd like to get updates on those 3 initiatives, that July presentation has some updates on all 3 of those. In the realm of training and exercise, I'm not going to repeat Susan's presentation because she did a great job on that. But clearly a lot has been done in the Communications Unit Training and Recognition Program. Just in the past year, we've held the 3 COML courses, 1 COMT course. We now have 8 OEC approved COML instructors here in Arizona. And the field day is underway. And we've got the 18 recognized COMLs and 1 COMT. Within usage and outreach, our office is still shorthanded, and we still continue to conduct interviews to help expand our office. So some of the usage and outreach has consolidated down or been restricted this past year. But even with that, we updated the statewide education and outreach plan. That was approved by the PSCC in July after the update of the SCIP, and that plan was updated to conform to the SCIP. This past month, unfortunately Paul is not here today, but we held the Environmental and Historic Preservation Compliance for Public Safety Communications Facilities workshop. Incredibly long title for a workshop, but the day-long workshop was really informative. We had, I believe, 54 folks that attended that workshop from all across the state, from a whole bunch of different agencies, from vendors to radio shop guys to grants planners, folks like that. So we had a really good cross-spectrum of people that attended that workshop. Started off with discussions from the FCC, State Homeland Security. I'm failing on the name of the tribe that came down. They sent 5. Tohono O'odham, wasn't it? Tohono O'odham Tribal Preservation Office sent 5 folks. So we had lots of good discussions there. And then in the afternoon, we walked through some case studies that PC-WEN put together on challenges they faced during the build-out of their systems. And lots of myths, I think, were dispelled during that workshop. And of course, earlier we had the discussion on the implementation of the Arizona Interop Channels Plan. And we want to continue moving forward on that. But we have had some progress on that over the past year. So those are, before I jump into the next level, that's kind of, at a high level, what we've been working on over the past year. And many of these, we really have brought them to, not to completion, but almost to the point of self-sustainment. Particularly, you notice the policy standards and procedures around the communications unit training program, those types of things. So looking forward now in terms of our activities for next year, in your packet, and I'm not going to go completely through the PSIC office plan there, but we did include the PSIC office plan in your packet. This is a plan that It's a companion document to the SCIP. The SCIP is really our statewide strategic plan, and this office plan is much more of a tactical plan on how the PSIC office in particular will organize our resources in the various projects that we're going to be working on over the next year, both to advance the SCIP and communications interoperability in general. It is a fiscal year plan, so every year we try to publish this at the beginning of July, and it runs through kind of July through the end of June. With our SCIP not being approved until the middle of July, this came out immediately following that. And instead of having to have you go through all 30 pages of the SCIP plus its appendices, there is a handout that I put together here. It's just a list of the various PSIC office projects that we've got planned for the coming year.
So it's right after your office plan and your budget, yes.
Right out. Thank you, Mark. There's our little logo on the top and says FY 2013 PSIC office projects. And as you can see, we have a whole number of projects that are listed there. In the governance lane, continued update to the SCIP and the PSIC office plan every year, of course. Technical assistance support. Want to continue and really emphasize next year regional governance advancements. Continue working on the chasm. We haven't talked about that much with the SIEC this year, but Karen Allen has been doing tremendous work in working with local agencies to keep their chasm information updated and to get more information included into chasm. We have talked a lot about TIC fees, and you saw earlier in Michael Britt's presentation on interop channels that all the various counties that we are going to be working with on implementing TIC fees, and then strategic planning, the Phoenix Central area, RWC, TRWC continue to work on their strategic plan, and then of course Goal 2 gap closure and continuing discussions on developing the governance broadband.
So should we do it?
Do you want to, and that's a good point. Should we break this down and have lane by lane discussions on where you would like the SIC to work on? Do you want me to go through all of the projects and then kind of come back? What are your thoughts?
Once you get them all, we'll come back.
In PSP lane, we're not looking at updating any of our communications unit procedures next year, but we do review all of the procedures annually. So if there are updates, either changes at the federal level that need to be done, or if we've new knowledge we've gained over the past year that we need to go back and look at those, of course we keep an eye on those. The interop channels plan, priority programming guide, primarily the implementation of those SOPs. The errors improvement and sustainability plan. As you know, there is a county that has requested grant funds this cycle, so if that is awarded, that plan will come into action, and we'll have first chance and opportunity to see how that works. Continued development of broadband. We talked about this at our last SIEC meeting, but all of our policy standards and procedures are moving over into the new PSIC office template for some consistency. The RCSC project, Regional Communication Systems Connection Project, in the next year we anticipate that the SOP for that project will be finalized. It's in a draft phase right now, pending the completion of the technology implementation. But once that project comes online, then we'll look at that SOP. And then the RICO project, or that the 6 tower sites there in southern Arizona. Along with that, there are 10 PSAPs and law enforcement agencies that have been given radios, or will be given radios once they complete the MOU, to form a system-wide calling channel in the southern area. That SOP has actually been drafted for a while now. We've been working with the user group to finalize it, and I think we're at a phase that once all those participating agencies sign the MOU, then that one will be finalized. But we haven't seen any tweaks to that document, so it's stabilized.
And you said they're going to be given radios?
Oh, sorry. The RICO project was the $2.2 million in RICO funds that actually almost 2 years ago now, PSCC, JLBC, and the Information Technology Advisory Council all approved a project to expand 700 megahertz, 800 megahertz coverage in the southern portion of Arizona and really build out the YRCS DPS partnership. There are 5 of the 6 towers have been activated, and so there are significant coverage among southern Arizona. Another section, there were 3 kind of components of that project. One was the expansion of coverage. 2 was the upgrading of the YRCS operability or operating system to be able to handle the increased capacity and additional features that are available. And a third kind of very small component, although very, very important component of it, at least small dollar-wise, was the purchase of some radios so that dispatch centers within each of the southern border counties there would each have access to the YRCS system and a dedicated channel that allows Greenlee and Grand and Pima, Cochise, Santa Cruz, Yuma to all talk to each other and to coordinate actions. It's very similar to the Maricopa, I don't want to call it a party line, but the dispatch centers all being able to talk to each other on a single channel.
Those were statewide RICO funds?
That's correct.
Who decided that?
The commission, PSCC, JLBC, that initially that money was designated for the build-out of a statewide interoperable communications solution and the detailed design.
I thought it was
$2 million. It's $2 million.
Yeah, it's $2.2 million.
And there was not enough money for the state.
Yeah, so it was designated for the detailed design, and the JLBC on recommendation of the PSCC said it makes no sense to spend $2 million designing a system that we don't have the $300 million to build the statewide system. And so they asked us to go out and develop a proposal and bring it back to them. And so the PSCC, we met with DPS, Homeland Security, ADOT, solicited input from a whole bunch of folks. YRCS presented the proposal we had. PSCC approved it, JLBC approved it, and the Information Technology Authorization Committee, which is a statewide agency that approves any project over $1 million. So that was the RICO project. Sorry. Yeah, it has been a while since we've talked about that project here. From a technology standpoint, the Errors Improvement and Sustainability Plan, we anticipate there will be some entities that are counties, agencies that are interested in expanding ERRS coverage. Continue to support regional communication systems and their build-out. As many of you may know, the state CIO, Aaron Sandine, is also chair of the PSCC, and part of our agency is responsible for oversight of all IT projects, including land mobile radio projects in the state. So through that role, our agency provides oversight for ERRS, microwave, strategic technology reserve, any other projects like that, and that's how we've been able to monitor state agency narrowbanding progress. The BID-P project down in Yuma continues to go forward, and we're working with them on a lot of areas. The state agency operability, interoperability, and the RICO project that I just went over. In the training and exercise lane, continue to work on COMLS and COMT training. Susan mentioned that a brand new award, there was some fallout funds in the Southern RAC, and so those have been designated for an additional COMT training that we're looking towards the beginning of next year for. The COMLS Training Field Day, continuing to advance our recognition program, working on getting ERRS training more prevalent, probably combining that ERRS training with a lot of the outreach that we're doing on the implementation of the Interop Channels Plan. And then the continued development of a training and exercise strategy, and more importantly, incorporating interoperable communications into existing training and exercise strategies. And then down in the usage and outreach lane, narrow banding compliance, even though the UHF narrow banding deadline is at the beginning of January, then we have the 2017 deadline for 700, 800 acres. So that's coming up. And we know, as you saw in those numbers, we will not have 100% compliance come January 1. But we want to continue to work on that. Broadband efforts, Michael talked earlier about kind of a framework for how our outreach efforts will take shape under there. Continue to work under NECP goal to gap closures, and then our annual update to our statewide education and outreach plan. So as you can see, there's an awful lot of projects there that our office is working on, and I'm sure there will be more that crop up over the year as more things come about. So what I'd kind of like to do is get your thoughts on areas that you think that the SIC would like to be working on and focusing on next year, whether it's items already discussed in our PSIC office plan, or if there are other issues that you would like us to be addressing and looking at over the coming year.
So are you looking to prioritize kind of this list, or were you think we're more specific?
Yeah, we're saying, what are your priorities?
Well, what is the SIC's priorities over the coming year? Are there areas that the SIC wants to be working on next year? The interop channels plan, for example. The AIRS improvement and sustainability plan. Is that a plan that, now that it's out there, does the SIC feel that, okay, it's out there? Or do you feel that we should be actively working to go out and kind of get agencies to expand AIRS? Or is that something that's more the responsibility of the jurisdictions at this point?
I think it's still an education process on folks even using it. But, I mean, if we went up to the top, I think the use of CASM and the TICPs, I think that's something that's still we started on it, and I think that's an important part of getting everything else kind of fall into place. So I think that's something that we still have to move forward on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, one thing we've heard loud and clear from our federal partners, and I'm sure you guys have seen, is the money for technology is drying up. Stuff we're, us buying more things are dwindling. So, and technology costs a lot of money, but the training and exercise and the, better utilization of what you do have, while it does cost some time and effort, and sometimes a little bit of funding, that's stuff that I think we can focus on. At least I can speak for Maricopa County. We have a lot of stuff, but we have a lot of people who don't know what we have, and they don't know how to use it, and they don't even know how to get a hold of it. I don't know if that, maybe the rest of the state's not in that position, but...
And we don't have a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But does the rest of the state know what stuff we have that we can deploy to them? Just because they don't have it doesn't mean it's not available to them. It means they don't know how to get it. So I don't expect Greenlee to have all the assets we have, but I would hope that they know how to get the assets when they need them. And that's where I see a lot of effort taking place, that we're not going to be able to outfit those counties with what we have, but we can certainly better utilize our assets to support their operations. But that's a training and education, that's an exercise piece, that's a getting to know each other piece. And that's where I think your office and the SIC can play a role in making sure that we share what we have available and better utilize it instead of hoarding it.
Yeah, there's no sense of moving on to new, white elephants if we're not fully using what's already out there. And I just want to make a note, since 2008 to present, I've counted a total of $19 million deferred away from the statewide digital microwave project. So that does concern me that we continually come up with new projects, and we haven't never completed that, which would have resolved a lot of the issues throughout the state by then.
We're getting on it. The other one I'd like to see, and I had really suggested this to Dr. Justice, that it's ARs on exercises. I know the exercise that NEMA just went through took some hits because agencies not understanding what they could and couldn't do, did not understand a directed net environment and some other issues. So, maybe some presentations on the results of some of those exercises like that as an educational outreach part.
And I will give a slight preview. Our next PSCC meeting, we have invited them to come and present to the PSCC the results of their recent statewide exercise, both from a statewide exercise perspective and the interoperable communications component of that exercise. Their after-action conference, am I using the right term there, is not until, I believe it's next week or the following week, and so that's why we didn't have them on our agenda today, because we hadn't had that conference yet. But definitely come and attend that September or November PSCC meeting. But that's a good point, is getting counties to come and present the results of their exercises and the results of incorporating interop-coms into their exercises. Sharing the lessons learned, I think, is another way of what you're saying.
Well, Justin, one thing that I think at least even we're guilty of it, I think got hit on it, is there's AARs that are put out, but the part that doesn't get followed up on is the improvement plan and actually doing something with it. I have a lot of AARs from a lot of exercises that talk about all the stuff we should be doing to fix it, and honestly, we're really not, because we're focusing on the next exercise, and we're trying to, you need those, but I think there's a lack of follow-through on the improvement plan part, and I'm guilty of it too, and I think maybe even you're seeing that with NECP too. You identified some very critical areas, but how much effort is being put to solve those areas for improvement? People know what they are, but are they doing anything to fix them?
And that's an area that we are working on in terms of tracking the goal to gap closure process. I think initially the key focus has been on the tick fees. If you saw the chart earlier, we have made a lot of progress in getting tick fees out. We only had 3 or 4 counties that had tick fees at the beginning of all of this. But we'll continue to report to you on the progress, at least that we've seen being made.
And Susan has done a fantastic job with the COML and the documentation. I think now that our program has matured, there's 181 people, but there's only 15 that have completed a task book. I like having classes. I think it's always a good opportunity, but I almost want to reach the lost ones that have already been to class and figure out what are we not doing to meet their needs. I think it's the training and exercise and the opportunities piece. We've failed miserably. Our candidates who've been to that class, we have not, and I'm guilty of it too, we have not done a great job of mentoring them and picking them up and trying to get them to complete the process. So, again, not buying more stuff or buying more equipment, but using what we have and training the people who have been to the class, because there's 181 people who've been to the class and there's 15 who've completed the task book. I know there's some that are never going to get it done, but there's a lot of people that are just out there waiting, but we're going to have to take some initiative to get them. They're probably not going to come to us. We're going to have to go find them and kind of rope them up and
give them the opportunity.
Well, hopefully
that's the hard part, is give them the opportunities.
Yeah, hopefully that COML Field Day will be something that if we can do it right the first time, we can continue doing it, and it will provide an opportunity for networking, to have the people that are recognized COMLs be there to help train the candidates and also build those relationships to invite them to more pre-planned events.
And I know, Jason Roosevelt out at PIR, he's taken Ron and some other people who've been to classes or will be going to classes, and we're trying to get them into the process, and we're starting to cycle out the people who've been through the task book, and we're starting to bring in the people who need their task book, and that's good. Those are the opportunities that we need to be presenting to folks. But I think the COML exercise is the first step in that, and then, I think that's why Connecticut, or, they've been so successful, that they can do that every quarter. Yeah, they're knocking out task books. I don't know where they get the money for that, but we need to figure it out.
Okay, so with those updates, don't get busy here because we actually talked about each of these projects already. The other input that I would like to get your thoughts on, and please, if I'm cutting anyone off, there are other priorities and stuff. This is the time to kind of let us know. But I also wanted to talk about our schedule. We have not yet established the 2013 SIEC schedule. This year, the PSCC every year the PSCC holds 5 meetings, the SIEC holds 5. The PSCC will do 3 in Phoenix, 1 in Flagstaff during the powwow, 1 in Tucson down in September. For the SIEC, in 2010, we try to have at least 1 meeting not in Phoenix for the SIEC to be able to take it on the road. As you see, we've gotten much better with our web conferences now. I believe we have 9 folks that are on our web conference today, but we do still want to be able to kind of take it on the road. In 2010, we were in Prescott. 2011, of course, our office was on the road all year with NACP Goal 2, but we started off this year up in Bullhead City at the Arizona Ambulance Association's annual conference. So wanted to get your thoughts on 2013 for those ideas on where we should take the SIEC meeting. Should we try and schedule the January meeting again in conjunction up there in Bullhead City? Should we look towards another conference or another location in Arizona?
I think the PSCC meetings have been successful by at least kind of moving them around a little bit as much as you can. I think you get a different crowd than you normally would. Some people can't travel, but I don't know. I think it's a good opportunity. If our focus is going to be training and outreach and hitting the people that are missing, you can't do that sitting in Maricopa County 5 times a year. So, I don't know.
Locations with PSCC probably realistically are the best choices. I know if I look at Arizona APCO NINA group, that we used to move around, that when we go to the rural Arizona, attendance typically is with real board, and it's supported by larger agencies, Phoenix, Tucson, which tend to show up regardless of where we're at. So I think maybe the Phoenix like Tucson kind of a selection is okay, you go north, so you can get people in northern Arizona, it's just a few hours east to west. You go south, and you collect a additional group that could show up by a couple hours of drive instead of 4 or 6 hours of drive. So Yuma is just about no man's land. Not much into it. They're 4 hours to anything.
Well, we certainly, any ideas that you have for next year, we would appreciate it. I'll be working with Mark and Paul here over the coming weeks to get our 2013 schedule finalized.
Paul can do something there in Tucson with PC Win. I don't know, what's the status of their new dispatch center too?
February is the last day for it.
So maybe there's a great show and tell opportunity there for PC Win.
Good idea. And then also the other thing that our office has tried to do is to hold some special deep dive types of workshops over the years. We had last January the Public Safety Communications Project Management day-long workshop. In September, we talked about the compliance workshop. Then last December, the Continuity of Operations Plans workshop. So with that, I'd kind of like your thoughts on what topics we should cover on that. Before this, we had some NIMCU workshops. We have 5 of those around the state. Are there topics or ideas that you would like to see us work with stakeholders to put on for these types of stakeholder deep dive type workshops?
Yeah, stick with Michael's back to Swiss dip. Somehow we need to get the education started broadband. True. For Arizona.
I'm sorry, which one?
Broadband. I mean, it's obviously the next big thing for us. Now, how long that's going to be before it's
Well, we just
intelligent.
stand around going like this
Yeah,
with our
before
shoulders.
it's an intelligent application for us to do something. I don't know. But
Before we can have a coherent discussion.
yes, well, that's something we need to do.
Well, I think you're right, though. Amongst ourselves, we need to try and figure out what our basis of reality is going to be in terms of Arizona.
Well, I think, I don't know you, Michael, had said it before, is that there were some folks out there saying, well, they weren't going to do anything that helps us broadband, they're doing everything to them. And even that education that it's not that close. You know, what, a little more realistic.
Yeah, because, I mean, we have had local jurisdictions in the mayoral, governmental side, you know, to contact, well, where are the grants gonna, when are the grants gonna start coming? And so those kind of discussions, you know, what is the structure of the thing and how it's gonna work? We need to get that out there, just the fundamental stuff.
People are thinking this is like, you know, Homeland Security program that they're going to get to apply for. So, you know, if you use some of that pretty fast, there ain't money coming that way.
With that, a couple of updates I do want to highlight, as usual. The back of your packet there and online is our monthly multiple project updates. To go into details about all the different projects that the PSIC office has going on right now and activities that we're working with other agencies on. A couple of key items I wanted to highlight. The Southwest Border Communications Unit Working Group, the Southwest Border Communications Working Group meeting is in October 17th, will be in Santa Fe. There's a number of Arizona stakeholders that always attend those meetings. Susan already mentioned the October 22nd Yuma COMLS class. In November, there's the Arizona Digital Connection Summit, which would be held out in Mesa, and that's a really good summit dealing primarily with broadband and expanding out from a general standpoint, not just public safety specific, but we'll be there as well. And then in December 4th, Pima County, technically it's the Tucson-Uwasi Interrupt Subcommittee, will be having a day-long revision of their TIC-P for Pima County on December 4th, so we would encourage folks to attend that. The other item here that I wanted to discuss here, since at our last meeting we requested your feedback on technical assistance requests for Arizona, on the very last page in your packet is kind of a summary of where all that stood. We didn't have much time this year to get our initial requests in. The turnaround was rather quickly, but we did listen and hear everyone's feedback. The 5 requests that were made this year, one of them had to be NECP Goal 2 related, and that was the OPTTX communications focused tabletop exercise. The other 4 that were made, mobile communications vehicle support to help continue to improve the SOPs, PSPs, usage and outreach of the equipment that we already have. Regional strategic planning, in particular, this one was requested for RWC, TRWC to continue their existing strategic planning efforts, an auxiliary communications workshop, and an all hazards COMT course. All of those, so we submitted those requests after meeting with, reviewing all the stakeholder feedback, meeting with Homeland Security. The Officers of Emergency Communications almost immediately began their very first phase of awarding out those NECP Goal 2 related requests. So Arizona has already been notified that we have been awarded, or will be awarded, the tabletop exercise. And so our office is soliciting feedback from folks that, particularly at the county level, that are interested in that TTX, having that TTX come to their county, and in particular, using it as an opportunity to demonstrate progress made towards meeting Goal 2s. We've had some discussions with a couple of counties already on that. So if anyone is interested in kind of stepping up to the plate and showing, here's all the progress we've made on Goal 2, and can take the time and effort to take advantage of this TA, we'll have that. OAC's notified us that they're doing the TAs a little bit differently this year. In the past, they have tried to award all the TAs up front and schedule them out for the full year, and then towards the end of the federal fiscal year, they have about half of the TA still sitting out there unused because the scheduling didn't work right, and now their consultants are frantically trying to bounce back and forth to get as much done as possible. And so to help alleviate some of that, they're going to be awarding these in a rolling type of ongoing basis, where as TAs are completed, additional TAs, and when resources get freed up, then they'll award more TAs for the resources they have right then and there. And that way, hopefully, they can be more effective in awarding these out. We do expect that sometime around the beginning of 2013 in January, we'll hear on the next level of TA awards that we might get. So the other 4 were deferred until that the next round of TA requests. Any questions on the TA? With that, that's the end of my chit-chatting and talking. I'll be working with Mark and Paul on getting the schedule for 2013 finalized, and we will send that out to everybody in November here on our interested parties list. A quick preview of the PSDC meeting. We'll be hearing updates from the Department of Homeland Security on this year's grant awards and the upcoming kind of preview cycle. We'll have updates from the Department of Public Safety on items such as the statewide microwave backbone, the progress that they have been making, their state agency in support of interoperability project, those types of things, and of course from ADEM as well regarding the most recent exercise.
Great. Okay, thanks, Justin.
Yep.
Next item 8, call to the public. Come on up so we can maybe hear you.
I just had a quick question for Justin. Do I need to come up to it?
As long as it gets on the recorder, I think.
Yeah, okay.
So that's a yes. Yes, Susan would like you to come up.
Oh, yes, the phone.
Yeah, so people can hear.
Oh.
Good morning, I'm Dale Brown from Arizona State Forestry. Justin, I just had a quick question for you. In your project updates for the PSIC office, did I hear you right? Yeah. You referenced a mobile radio project, or did I just misunderstand?
The RICO project?
Under the technology section, given a brief, you mentioned something about a mobile radio project. Maybe I just misunderstood.
Well, during the RICO presentation, you said the last part was radios. You didn't say mobile radios, but they were for the dispatch center.
Correct. They're for the dispatch centers. They are 10 APEC or not APEC. So yeah, it's just for those 10 county EOCs and the PSAPs, yeah.
Okay.
And
right after that, you mentioned, I thought, mobile radio project, those words, so I was just kind of curious what that meant. So I just misunderstood.
Yeah, no. The only other effort, which it was the TA effort for the mobile communications vehicles, that we put in this request the last 2 years, and hopefully we may get it this year. But that's been an ongoing request that we've had from a number of stakeholders, is that we've got these codes and bullfrogs and Gila monsters throughout the county. But as Justin mentioned earlier, Phoenix UOC has a ton of resources. Greenlee can't buy some of the resources that Maricopa County has, but how do they get them? What are the procedures for getting those deployed? How do we increase the usage and awareness of those assets? So that's a TA that hopefully if we get this year, we can help to address some of that concern.
Okay. Any other calls or comments? Yeah.
Oh, what the hell, I can't. Just 2 things, and Michael, we probably...
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Come on, Jim.
Wow.
We got to get you on the phone to record it because our, unfortunately, our recorder died. You are loud, Dan, but...
And well, also there is State Forestry. On the statewide channel plan, where we've run into a lot of problems with channel plans is not having a defined version control over which iteration of these things we have. So when people are looking at these things, is it this week, last week's? And also almost sunset clauses to where if people can build an expectation of once a year we're going to look at these, every 2 years, so where I know Dale and I have been tearing our hair out on the land management side with agencies making major frequency overhauls 2 or 3 times a year. Nobody lives in isolation. It impacts so many people around them that maybe, some conversations about continuity in terms of frequency planning, version control over statewide plan, yeah. Oh, trouble, because it impacts us though.
Oh, no, I mean.
So, but the big thing is version control. I don't know if if you armor the page or something.
No, and
That's a
We're not
problem.
responding, we're listening. Sorry.
Just clarifying.
Okay.
That's good. That's great.
Oh, the statewide vehicle test. We put in for that, we don't get the grant to do it, yet one of the problems we have with all these COM vehicles around the state is we do lack integration, lack that thread that goes between all of them. Many of them exist in isolation, even the state vehicles exist in isolation, and maybe we could build a structure to do that in absence of TA funding. That is an ever-present problem, and if the TA stuff doesn't arrive, then let's build a structure to figure out how to go after that and make it happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Great suggestion. Thank you, Dan.
Any other comments from the public? Once, anybody on the phone? Comments? Okay. Going once, going twice? Hearing none? Motion for adjournment.